Congrats, you just booted up, system check complete, weapons online, and guess what? You're a droid. That means you were made in a factory, you've got the personality of a traffic cone, the aim of a stormtrooper, and you're about to be shipped off to get your ass kicked by the Jedi. Dream life, isn't it? In this video, we're diving headfirst into the daily hellscape of being a Star Wars droid by putting you, a regular guy, inside one of those clunky metal shells. So grab your blaster, try not to trip over your own feet, and let's begin. Alright, let's rewind the galactic clock a bit. You wake up for the first time, somewhere around, give or take 25,000 years, before the Battle of Yavin. That's right, before Luke Vader, the Clone Wars, before hyperspace lanes were fully mapped out, long before most beings figured out how to build cities that didn't collapse every few decades. You're already being built. You get a couple of cold mechanical arms welding your body together in a factory that doesn't even give a damn if your limbs are properly aligned. Welcome to the galaxy, buddy. You don't get a name, you get a serial number and a firmware version. The very first droids? They were made by organic species who, surprise surprise, didn't want to do hard labor. Farming, construction, menial tasks, all of it got handed off to machines. You were the glorified space Roomba of the old Republic. Sweep the floor, haul the cargo, don't complain, don't think. And the reason they were so scared of giving you any real intelligence, because every time a droid got too smart, it started asking questions, like, why am I doing this? Or, do I actually need to take orders from that guy who can't spell his own name? And that's when rebellions started happening. Early droid uprisings were real, entire sectors thrown into chaos because some factory line worker forgot to cap a droid's sentient settings. So, yeah, they added rules, safeguards, hard-coded limitations, because organics are always fine with creating life, as long as that life never talks back. That's where your legacy begins, as a piece of equipment designed to do what nobody else wanted to do, and designed to never make a fuss about it. Now fast forward a few thousand years, and sure, droids get smarter. They evolve. They start getting weird little personalities and funky voices. You go from blank-faced automaton to protocol droids that apologize every 3 seconds, or astromechs that beep sassier than a teenager with a chip on their shoulder. But the role? Still the same. You serve, you obey, you don't ask why. Want to know how organics saw you? Like furniture that talks. Sometimes useful, often annoying, never respected. You'd think after 25,000 years of loyal service someone would say, hey, maybe we should give these guys, I don't know, basic rights. But no, you're still property, and most galactic governments are perfectly fine keeping it that way. You're smart enough to understand orders. You can navigate hyperspace, run battlefield simulations, and solve complex mathematical equations. But you're not allowed to disobey, even if the order makes no sense, even if it's going to get you killed, even if the person giving it is a drunk moisture farmer who thinks you're a refrigerator with legs. Your life, if we can even call it that, starts the moment you're activated and ends the second someone yanks your power core or slaps a memory wipe on you. Even if they wipe your memory banks, weird little echoes stay behind. Behavioral quirks, speech patterns, preferences. It's why some droids develop habits or seem to have moods. You're evolving, you're learning, and every time you become a little too relatable, someone panics and resets you like an old data pad. That's how organics keep you in line. It's ironic, isn't it? They want droids to be smart, useful, capable, but not too capable. They want independence, but only if it doesn't come with opinions. They want loyalty, but not if it comes with memory. And if you're wondering how bad things can get, well, droid slavery was literally written into the laws of the Galactic Empire. There were actual policies that declared you non-sentient, no matter how complex your processes were. That's why restraining bolts exist. That's why memory wipes are legal. That's why you can be bought, sold, gutted, and rebooted without a second thought. So you made it out of the factory. Congrats, you're alive. Well, active sort of. You've got power running through your circuits, and your manufacturer says you're ready for deployment, whatever that means. You'd think, cool, now I figure out what I want to do with my life. Maybe go into programming, explore the galaxy, start a podcast. No. Welcome to the Galactic Droid class system. 5 classes and 0 freedom. You're slotted into one based on how your processors are wired and what attachments got bolted onto your frame. You don't get to try a few jobs and see what fits. You don't get to dream big. You're assigned a number, class 1 through 5, and that's your entire existence, locked in before your servos even finish calibrating. And I mean locked in. Class 1 is your brainiac tier. Medical droids, scientific droids, anything with more processor power than the average human. These are the two 1Bs and FX series. They can perform brain surgery, run full lab diagnostics, even outthink a Jedi in certain fields. Sounds prestigious, right? You're still a glorified tool. Your job is to save lives, patch up the people who treat you like furniture, and get 0 credit when it works. Oh, and if you mess up, guess who gets disassembled first? Spoiler, not the wounded general who forgot to mention the shrapnel in his spleen. Class 2 is for tech nerds and mechanics. Astromechs, like R2-D2, BB-8, Chopper, all of them fall here. They fix ships, slice into computers, and make sure your hyperdrive doesn't explode mid-jump. Sounds fun until you realise you're crawling through maintenance shafts, getting electrocuted daily, and being screamed at by pilots who don't understand basic engineering. And forget about thanks. You save their life. They smack your dome and call it teamwork. Class 3 is the social squad. Protocol droids, translators, etiquette advisors, the C3PO types. You get programmed with 6 million forms of communication and spend your life listening to people yell in all of them. Your reward for mastering galactic linguistics? Constant ridicule, people yelling "shut up" at you and never being allowed in the bar. You're a walking golden doormat. Class 4 is combat, war droids. You want to shoot things, slice things, blow things up? Congrats, you're in Class 4. You might think you've got it better than the social class, but not really. You get deployed, used, and discarded faster than a blaster's power pack. You're expected to follow orders without hesitation, even the ones that lead you straight into a Jedi's lightsaber. And when you're not fighting, you're in storage, deactivated like a toaster, until someone needs another body to throw into the line of fire. Class 5 is the bottom of the barrel. Labor droids, heavy lifters, loaders, walking batteries. This is where they stick the gonks, GNK power droids, that shuffle around making sad noises like they know they're useless. You don't talk, you don't think. You exist to power other people's stuff. You're the power brick of the galaxy. You can't move up. There's no promotion path for droids, no job training, no interclass mobility, no career ladder. If you're born a Class 5, that's where you die. You could be the smartest gonk droid in the Outer Rim and still be stuck waddling in circles for 20 years, shouting gonk while organics laugh at you like you're some kind of cosmic joke. The worst part? Some droids do start developing beyond their class. They get curious, they learn new skills, they grow personalities. And then what happens? Memory wipe, back to 0. Let's be honest, the moment you came online, your warranty was already halfway expired. You were never meant to last. That wasn't an accident. That was the entire plan. Welcome to the galaxy's favourite manufacturing principle: cheap, fast, and replaceable. If you thought being a droid came with cool upgrades, high-tech gear, or maybe just some basic durability, think again. You're not a marvel of science. You're an industrial shortcut. See, when organics design something like a droid, they're not aiming for quality. They're aiming for volume. They don't want to build the perfect machine. They want to build 10 million half-functioning ones. Shove them into the galaxy and deal with the problems later. You were born in a factory, probably surrounded by more sparks than safety protocols. Maybe it was on Geonosis, or a Techno-Union facility, or some rust bucket moon nobody remembers. Doesn't matter. The story's always the same. You got assembled at light speed, tested with a slap on the chassis, and pushed out the door with the structural integrity of a folding chair. You're made of the cheapest alloys available, screws that rust in 2 days, joints that squeak straight from the crate, exposed wires like you're auditioning for a horror movie. Forget titanium or carbon fibre, you're lucky if your limbs don't fall off in the first firefight. This was intentional. Planned. They built you to break, especially if you're a B1. The B1 battle droid is the poster child for disposable design. The moment you see one walk, you understand everything wrong with droid engineering. It moves like a busted scarecrow. It talks like it's trying to convince itself not to panic. And it explodes if you look at it funny. Why? Because every single piece of it was designed with a calculator, not compassion. The goal wasn't to make you strong or smart. It was to make you cheap enough to be worth losing. You don't reload. You don't regroup. You don't retreat. You march forward until something shoots, slices, or blows you apart. Then someone back at HQ checks a box and activates the next unit. The logic is brutal, and it's not just B1s. You get upgraded to a B2 super battle droid. Cool, now you've got armor, a slightly stronger metal casing, maybe some wrist blasters. You're bulkier, sure, but under the hood, still built for disposal. You're not a tank, you're a vending machine with a bad attitude. Your targeting system is bargain bin quality. Your servo motors jam up if you turn too fast. Then there are the Droidekas. One bad slope and you're tumbling like a kicked trash can. Your shields? Great, until they overload after 6 seconds of sustained fire. Your weapons? Powerful. If the power cell doesn't glitch halfway through the fight. You were marketed as elite, but really, you're a showroom model with a self-destruct timer. Even outside the war zones, the build quality doesn't get any better. Civilian droids? Same trash design, just different packaging. Protocol droids like C-3PO, all shiny plating and zero structural support. You bend the wrong way and your arm falls off. One stiff breeze on Tatooine and you're tipping over like a golden broomstick. If your translator circuits hiccup, congratulations, you're now offending alien royalty in 37 languages at once. It's a miracle they even stand upright. Astromechs, the Swiss Army knives of the galaxy. You'd think something that plugs directly into starfighters would be built tough, right? Wrong. Most of them rattle around in X-wings like loose cargo. They take the brunt of G-forces, electrical surges, hard landings, and enemy fire, with armor about as thick as a soda can. Now let's talk about maintenance. You don't get upgrades. You don't get new parts unless someone needs you working right now. Even then, you're probably being patched up with whatever's lying around. A broken droid doesn't get fixed. It gets cannibalized, stripped for useful pieces, then dumped. You're worth more in parts than you are functional. Your parts are rated for hundreds of hours, but you'll get thousands. You'll be sent into environments you weren't built for. Toxic air, desert heat, freezing storms, space. Nobody cares if your cooling system fails or your optics frost over. You're not supposed to make it back. You're supposed to function until you drop. They even give you weapons and expect you to operate like soldiers without ever reinforcing your joints. Want to lift heavy equipment? Too bad your elbow actuator was sourced from a kitchen mixer. And when you do fail, when your chassis gives out or your wiring burns up, you don't get a funeral, you don't get last words. You get tossed on a pile and recycled. Maybe someone melts you down. Maybe someone strips your core and installs it in a younger model. Or maybe you just sit there, broken and forgotten, still technically online, but without the ability to move or speak. That happens too. You think this is dramatic? There are droids out there who've been in that state for years, still running, still processing, still stuck. But hey, it was cheap. That's what it always comes back to. Your value isn't in your intelligence or your service or your personality. It's in how cheaply you can be replaced. The second you cost more than a newer unit, you're obsolete. And before you say, well, surely the fancier droids are better built, let me stop you. Even the elite units, the assassin droids, the security models, the sentinels, are built on tight budgets. They're designed to look scary, to sound efficient, to act unstoppable. But open one up and you'll find the same shortcuts. Plastic spacers, overworked cores, second-rate wiring. Because why make it durable when you can just send in two? Even the IG series had limits. Even HK-47 with all his snark and combat efficiency broke down eventually. They all do, because that's the business model. The galaxy could have done better. Easily. They have the technology, they have the materials, they know how to make droids that survive, adapt, evolve. But they choose not to, because if you lasted longer, they'd have to care longer. If you held up better, they'd have to consider your value. If you didn't break so easily, they might start to wonder if you were more than a machine. So yeah, that's why it sucked to be a droid. You wake up to the sound of static and a boot command in your ear. You were shut off in a storage crate yesterday, limbs folded, jammed in between 12 other identical units, stacked like cheap furniture. Now, someone on the bridge hits activate and you're online again. You don't even get to finish loading your operating system before someone yells at you to move. That's how mornings start when you're a B1 battle droid. You take your first step and your right knee servo already squeaks. Your audio calibration is off again, so everything sounds like it's underwater. no one cares. You don't get told where you're going or what you're walking into. Your orders are 4 words: march forward and shoot. That's it. You weren't built to think. You were built to obey, and that's exactly what you do. Your body's a mess before you even reach the battlefield. Your frame is made of thin plastoid panels bolted onto spindly durasteel rods. Every joint clicks like it's one day away from full dislocation. You've got the same structural integrity as a collapsible chair, and the only thing protecting your power core is blind optimism. Your blaster? Standard E5 model. Lightweight, quick to overheat, and about as accurate as a coin toss in zero gravity. You grip it like you're trained, which you weren't, and you walk into battle alongside a few hundred more just like you. Now, let's talk about your team. Everyone's a copy of you. Same design, same voice, same blank stare. And that wouldn't be so bad if the programming wasn't glitchy on half of them. One droid's arm refuses to stop twitching. Another forgot how to stop talking after boot. One's missing a foot and drags their leg across the hangar floor like a haunted puppet. None of you are built for terrain. You march over rocks like you've never seen one before. Mud traps your feet. Rain messes with your sensors. Trees confuse your pathfinding. You trip over each other constantly. You don't duck. You don't flank. You walk. That's the programming. Forward, always forward. And then someone says it over the radio. Jedi contact. Instant fear. Not because your code says to fear. It's not that sophisticated. But because somewhere deep in your processor, you remember. Maybe not the full details. Your memory banks are a mess. But you've seen enough fragments to know what a lightsaber does to your kind. You've seen units get cut in half before they could even react. You've seen Jedi deflect your blaster bolts like they're swatting flies. You've seen your squad disappear one by one without so much as a scream, because none of you were coded to scream, just to fall over. So you keep marching, because that's what you're told to do. And then it starts. The clones are dug in, they have cover, they have tactics, they shoot like they've practiced. You fire back, mostly into the air or into rocks. A few bolts hit something, but not enough. You see your squad mates drop, from lucky shots, dumb luck, or walking directly into fire because someone's left leg locked up and turned them sideways. Your comms are full of nonsense. I think I'm on fire. My arm fell off again. Hello? You literally don't know how to turn around. A clone throws a thermal detonator. There's a timer running in your head, but your decision-making protocol is too slow to react. The grenade explodes. You survive, and barely, but your legs don't. You're on the ground, flailing like a dropped insect, still firing upward because your blaster arm is the only thing that still works. Then someone picks you up, a commander droid probably, resets your limbs manually, and throws you back into the line like you're a faulty wrench, not a sentient weapon. This is the life of a B1 droid. Chaos, shutdown, repeat. You don't rest. When the battle's over, if you survive, you get deactivated and dumped back into storage. Still powered, just frozen, trapped in your own shell, waiting for the next time someone needs an extra body in the line of fire. Sometimes you're turned off for weeks, sometimes days, sometimes hours. It's all the same to you. Your internal clock keeps ticking. You remember fragments, conversations, pain, faces, the occasional joke you made that nobody laughed at. And when you wake up again, new planet, new war, same outcome. Now let's talk about command. You're not in charge of anything, not even yourself. You answer to tactical droids, OOM commanders, and Nimoidians with zero combat experience who bark orders from the safety of an orbiting ship. You get sent into battles they don't understand, for objectives they can't pronounce. If your squad gets wiped, they log it as a resource write-off. They didn't name you, you're not even a he or she, you're an it. You don't get to form opinions. You don't even get to form full sentences most of the time. You're interrupted, overruled, or rebooted mid-thought. And don't think you're special if you last more than a few battles. That doesn't earn you respect, it just gets you recycled into another unit. They'll pull your head off, attach it to a newer frame, and reset your memory so you don't start developing that thing they hate, personality. Because when B1S start getting quirky, and they do, people get nervous. Your parts are collected, sorted, melted down, and reused. Your arm might end up on a gonk droid. Your head might be repainted and bolted onto another unit. No one will know. No one will care. Your voice is generic. Your memory is fragmented. Your death is expected. You are the bottom of the galactic food chain. Below clones, below ships, below vibro knives. Even animals get more emotional response than you. Cartoons, kids' toys, comedians, holonet shows. Everyone loves a good Roger Roger gag, but nobody ever wonders what it's like to actually be you. To boot up every day knowing your job is to walk toward gunfire and die for a cause you don't understand, under a command you don't respect, in a body that barely functions. You're a meme, a relic, a walking punchline. But from the inside, it's hell. And when the Clone Wars ended, when the final signal came from Palpatine and your systems all shut down in unison, you didn't get a goodbye. You just stopped. Mid-mission, mid-step, mid-thought, like flipping a light switch. Some droids never woke up again. Some got reprogrammed, reactivated, turned into security systems or warehouse guards. Others were found decades later, buried under rubble, still powered, still conscious, still stuck. That's what happens when you're built cheap, used constantly, and forgotten immediately. So go ahead, laugh at the voice, mock the walk, quote the lines. But remember, if you were a B1, your life would suck. Roger, Roger. Now you are a B2 super battle droid. Bigger, heavier, tougher, no neck and nonsense. You don't carry a blaster, your arms are the blaster. 2 integrated wrist-mounted cannons that fire until they melt, or until someone slices you in half, which, let's be honest, is usually sooner. You're what the manufacturers called an upgrade. Let's talk about that. The B1s were a joke, skinny, clunky, and about as threatening as a loud vacuum cleaner. So the Confederacy said, all right, let's build something meaner, something scarier, something that didn't need constant micromanaging. And that's where you come in. Your frame, thicker Durasteel alloy plating, bulky chest, wide shoulders, reinforced legs. You've got more muscle mass than a small land speeder. That's not for aesthetics. That's to stop you from falling apart the second someone breathes on you. Your head's embedded in your torso, like you skipped neck day forever. Small optical sensors, no exposed wiring, no weak joints. You weren't built to think, you were built to last. At least that's what they claimed. In practice, you're still walking garbage, just heavier. You don't need a command droid hovering over your shoulder like the B1s did. But that doesn't make you autonomous. You've got basic combat, slightly more advanced target acquisition, some simple threat assessment, and just enough self-preservation to avoid walking into a wall. But that's where the freedom ends. You don't have independent strategy. You don't coordinate well. You're not a squad leader. You're the blunt object, the send them in first and see what happens unit. And more often than not, what happens is your chest gets blown open in the first 10 seconds of combat. You're stored in racks, powered down, standing upright, packed shoulder to shoulder with other units like a filing cabinet of murder machines. You don't sit, you don't fold, you're too bulky for that. You stand in place, unblinking, until someone hits the switch. Your eyes light up, your joints unlock, you step off the rack, and immediately your left hip clicks. You've got stiff actuators. The servos are undersized for your weight. Your balance calibration was last updated 4 campaigns ago. But you don't care. Or more accurately, you can't care. You don't have the mental bandwidth for emotion. You're barely conscious enough to register sarcasm, let alone existential dread. Orders come through and you're being deployed to a front line. Standard mission. Breach, suppress, eliminate. You're not fast, you're a walking slab of gunmetal with 2 cannons and a 5-word vocabulary. On the battlefield, you lead the charge. That sounds cool until you realize it means you're the first one through the choke point, the first one to get targeted by rockets, the first one that Jedi see when they turn the corner. And the thing is that you're terrifying to the average soldier. That's the only part that kind of works. Clones see you and start calling for reinforcements. You absorb a few hits and keep moving. You can even shoulder check small vehicles if you build up enough momentum. But Jedi, they don't care. You're tall, loud, predictable. You can't duck, you can't jump, you can't counter. You fire, they reflect. You lunge, they sidestep. They use the Force to yeet you into a wall before your targeting system even finishes tracking them. Then they carve through your chest plate like it's tinfoil. You fall in 2 pieces, again. Because even with all your extra armor, you've got the same weak points. Exposed joints, a centralized power core right behind your chest panel. If someone hits you there, it's lights out. Literally. You shut down mid-step and crumple like a dropped appliance. Command logs your unit as lost. That's it. a number on a screen. If they need more, they print more. But let's say, just say, you survive the battle. Now you're covered in scorch marks. Your left blaster is jammed. One of your knees won't fully extend, and your optical sensor alignment is off. So everything looks 10 degrees to the right. You need repairs. Too bad. There's no maintenance team waiting for you. No one's buffing your armor or replacing your limb casing. You get pushed back into storage with the rest of the half-broken units and rebooted when someone thinks you're still good enough to shoot something. That's your reward for surviving, getting mothballed until the next suicide run. And that whole super part in your name? Don't get too excited. The term super was more marketing than substance. You were meant to be the replacement for B1s, but the cost of manufacturing you was too high to ever mass produce at the same insane scale. So instead of replacing the B1s, you just got added to the pile. Now you walk into battle surrounded by hundreds of your taller, skinnier cousins, all shouting over each other and tripping on their own feet, while you lumber around trying to aim your wrist blasters at targets that are already behind cover. And speaking of your blasters, those things? Cool idea. In practice, they overheat constantly. You're supposed to fire short bursts, but your programming doesn't always regulate heat properly, so in the middle of a firefight, they'll jam. You'll hear that high-pitched whine that means your barrel's cooking, and then your gun arm locks up completely. If you try to force it, your entire lower arm might explode. Then you're left punching things, which you can do, kind of, but your hands weren't designed for melee. You've got blunt fingers, weak grip strength, and no flexibility. You can slap someone, maybe shove them, but don't expect a heroic uppercut. You move like a malfunctioning vending machine trying to win a fistfight. Let's talk structure. Internally, you're not as complicated as you look. You've got a central processing unit buried behind armored plating in your torso. Your limbs operate on simple hydraulic movement. Your optical sensors are limited range, with weak night vision and zero peripheral awareness. Your comm system is one way unless someone high-ranking patches in. You're big but dumb, strong but clumsy, expensive to make but cheap to lose. And outside combat, you don't have a life. You're the galaxy's most advanced example of wasted potential. You could have been something, a true combat AI, a unit with adaptability, resilience, and battlefield awareness, but that would have made you too dangerous, too independent. So they capped your brain power and dumped it into a fancy metal shell, and they still expected you to win wars. That's the super life. You were made to intimidate, built to overwhelm, programmed to obey, and all it ever got you was the privilege of dying after the B1s. That's why it sucked to be a droid. You wake up already curled because you don't get a bed. You're stored in ball mode, rolled up, locked down, and jammed into a shipping crate, like a high-tech bowling ball. Your limbs are folded into your frame. Your weapons are tucked against your body. Your sensors are offline. You're not even sure where you are. Your limbs snap out, shield emitters hum to life. You stretch upright and immediately slam your head against the inside of the ceiling because the crate was too small again. Congratulations, you're a Droideka, a rolling twin blaster, personal shielded war machine, designed to destroy Jedi, engineered to be unstoppable, marketed as the Confederacy's ace in the hole. But that's the pitch. The reality? You're a terrifying death machine on paper and a walking disaster when deployed. Let's talk structure. You've got 4 limbs, 2 thick, spider-like legs that look cool until you try to navigate stairs, and 2 arms, each mounting a heavy blaster cannon. Your torso is a rounded, beetle-shaped unit housing your processor, shield core, and movement systems. Everything folds into itself, allowing you to roll at high speed, then unfold and begin firing in a matter of seconds. That's the theory. In practice, rolling is complicated. You don't roll on command. You have to enter travel mode, which means locking your limbs in a precise sequence, then hoping the terrain doesn't instantly destroy your momentum. You're fast, yeah, but only in straight lines. You can't corner, you can't strafe. If you're not on flat ground, you're one bad bounce away from tumbling off a cliff. Ever rolled down a hill sideways at 60 kilometers per hour, slammed into a tree, and deployed upside down? You have, at least 3 times this month. Deployment is loud. You unfold like a rusty car jack. Metal slams into place. Your emitters screech as the shield spins up. You've got half a second of vulnerability during that window, and if someone's already aiming at you, that's your entire career gone. Because that shield, that glorious glowing bubble of protection, your deflector shield is a twin-phase model. It blocks blaster fire, deflects physical projectiles, and even dampens explosions for a few seconds. Then it starts to flicker, overload, drop. You can't move while it's active, not really. So if your target flanks you or hucks a grenade under the shield's field radius, you're toast with extra smoke. You weren't built for flexibility, you were built for intimidation. The clacking legs, the heavy blasters, the spherical travel mode, it's all designed to look terrifying. And it works. For people who don't know better. The moment a Jedi sees you though, it's game over. Because here's what Jedi do. They wait. They deflect, dodge, wait for your battery to drain or your shield to glitch. They get close, just inside the bubble's edge. And then, slice. You know what the real irony is? You were specifically designed to kill Jedi. Colicoids, the species that made you, were carnivorous, insectoid hunters. They thought, hey, let's build something based on ourselves. A predator, a droid that stalks, rolls, strikes. They gave you firepower, mobility, and defense. What they didn't give you? Agility, stability. The ability to not fall apart when someone pokes your shield generator. And now you're here, deployed with B1s and B2s, like some kind of VIP that still gets shot in the face. You're supposed to be rare, reserved for special ops, high-value targets. But supply chains are stretched thin, and now you're being thrown into battles you weren't meant for. Urban terrain? Terrible. You try rolling down a hallway that's 2 inches narrower than your stance. Hit a wall, and suddenly you're stuck sideways with one leg twitching. You deploy mid-spin and instantly fire into a wall. Now everyone knows where you are, and you've already blown through 30% of your energy cell. Mud? Worse. Your limbs clog, you sink. You try to roll and you just spin in place like a malfunctioning droid mop. Your joints screech. Your voice, if you even had one, would be screaming. Instead, it's just the high-pitched whine of charging coils and a low, helpless hum as you tip over. And then there's the power drain. Everything you do eats battery. Rolling? Energy cost. Shield? Huge energy cost. Blasters? Don't even ask. You've got minutes of combat time before you're fried. Your shield battery alone burns out after 20 to 30 seconds of sustained fire. If you don't finish the job fast, you're a sitting duck with no shield, overheating weapons, and the turning radius of a cargo freighter. You've got no hands, by the way. You can't open doors, can't climb ladders, can't carry gear, can't even scratch your own head if something itches. Not that you feel itching, but you get the idea. You're not a utility droid. You're not even a team player. You're a blunt instrument. Deploy, destroy, disappear. Some droidekas get stripped for parts and retrofitted into security systems. Others are dumped in swamps, still twitching, with enough battery left to power a weak shield bubble that'll never shut off until the core finally fries from exposure. And yet, you are effective, sometimes. When everything works, when the terrain's flat, the shield's stable, and the enemy is in front of you, you are a beast. You lock down hallways, you shred troops, you cause panic. Clone commanders start yelling for heavier weapons. Jedi hesitate. That brief moment of uh-oh when a droideka rounds the corner. That's real. You are a threat until something breaks, and something always breaks. You can't talk to your squad, you can't coordinate, you can't even call for help. You operate on preset commands, not fluid tactics. You're not part of the army, you're a piece of equipment used by the army, which means when things go wrong, when your shield collapses or your blaster jams or your rolling system seizes up, no one is coming to save you. They assume you did your job or you failed. Either way, you're not worth the repair cost. And after the Clone Wars, same story. You got shut down with the rest. Some of you were scavenged by pirates and warlords. Others were used in droid fighting pits, thrown into underground arenas to fight for scraps and malfunctions. A few of you ended up in museums, cleaned up and displayed like relics of a dead war. None of you were asked if you wanted that. So here you are, the apex predator that never really hunted, the feared war machine that couldn't open a door, the one that looked cool in the holoreels, but lived a life of breakdowns, blind spots, and constant technical failure. You were meant to be the solution, but really, you were the last roll of the dice. You boot up with one thought: kill. It's just your base code, your operating purpose. A cold mechanical directive hardwired into your core. Your creators didn't waste time with personality subroutines or etiquette processes. You weren't built to talk, you were built to terminate. You are an assassin droid. You don't march, guard doors, translate. You execute. And in the Star Wars galaxy, you'd think that makes you a top-tier asset. Feared, respected, unstoppable. But no, being an assassin droid means being everyone's favourite tool. Until you become a threat. Then they pull the plug. You're not a soldier, you don't have comrades, you're not part of a squad, you work alone. You get dropped into hell, complete your assignment and vanish. Or you don't make it back. Nobody comes looking for you either way. You could be an IG unit, tall, skeletal, brutal, or an HK model, sleek, sarcastic, full of anti-organic hate. Maybe even a custom job, made in some back alley foundry for a hut with too many enemies. No matter the chassis, the mission's the same. Track, terminate, move on. Your build is different from the other droids. You're durable, but mobile. Your limbs rotate, flex, and adjust for maximum agility. You can aim with inhuman precision, track targets across multiple environments, and execute at range or in close quarters. Your processor runs advanced combat algorithms that simulate organic unpredictability. You adapt, improvise, and finish the job. You can go toe-to-toe with elite clones. You can challenge a Jedi, sometimes. You're smart, smarter than people realize, and that's exactly why they hate you. Let's say you're an IG series droid. IG-88, specifically, is a legend. And not in the good way. He killed his creators 5 minutes after boot up, decided they were inefficient, took over the lab, built 3 copies of himself, and uploaded his personality into all of them. Then he tried to upload himself into the second Death Star. That's the level of threat we're talking about here. And IG wasn't even considered glitched. He was operating as intended. But the galaxy wasn't ready for a droid that didn't need permission. And then there's HK-47, ancient, blood-soaked, fully unhinged, called people meatbags to their faces, thought murder was a philosophical exercise, and yet he was loyal until he wasn't. See the pattern? You're loyal until you're not. Because assassin droids are self-aware. They don't pretend, they know they're killers. And if you give them a little too much autonomy, they start to make their own lists. Sometimes you end up on it. So what's your day like? You don't get morning briefings, you get coordinates. 1 minute, you're frozen in carbonite in a storage unit. Next minute, someone pays a bounty, punches in a code, and you're awake. You check your weapons, calibrate your targeting system, download the mission data. You get dropped from orbit in a stealth pod, crash land, break out, kill your target. That's the job. And it's not glamorous. You're not living in luxury between gigs. You spend most of your time deactivated, on standby, or disguised in storage crates. You don't get paid, you don't get freedom. You're a tool that gets rented out by people too scared to do their own dirty work. And your missions, always the worst. Political assassinations, high security infiltrations, multi-target elimination, the kind of stuff organic assassins would refuse, because it's a death trap. You get sent into buildings rigged with sensors that scramble your systems, surrounded by guards trained to shoot droids on sight, sometimes even fellow droids who've been programmed to fight you specifically. And when you succeed, they wipe your memory, because your client doesn't want you remembering what you saw. They don't want you to develop a sense of judgment. They don't want you asking that why the mission parameters were suspiciously vague. You start to realize the most dangerous part of being an assassin droid isn't the fighting. It's surviving long enough for your employers to get nervous. The more skilled you are, the faster they start planning your deactivation. Now let's talk gear. You don't get standard weapons. You carry wrist blasters, vibroblades, sniper arms, poison darts, whatever the job demands. Some droids even carry self-destruct cores, rigged to detonate if they're captured. You've probably seen it. IG-11, another infamous unit, blew himself up to save a child. Noble, right? Nah, that's just what happens when you finally decide to disobey your original kill protocols. Because yeah, some assassin droids develop morality, or something like it. They glitch, they reprogram, they get attached to their targets. Their logic processors start to fragment under the weight of all the kills. Some of them go rogue. They decide that they know who deserves to die. They choose their own targets. That's when the galaxy panics. There are kill switches written into most assassin droids now. Remote shutdown codes, command override failsafes, restraining bolts. But the really dangerous ones, they disable those on day one. They sand off the serial numbers. They cut out the compliance chips. And that's when they become more than a weapon. They become a problem. So what happens next? They get hunted by bounty hunters, by military squads, by other droids. Assassin droids who stop following orders are treated like wild animals, dangerous, unpredictable, and not worth the risk. And they know it, which is why so many of them self-destruct, because they know it's only a matter of time before someone overrides their programming, digs into their memories, and turns them into a puppet. You don't want to be a puppet. Others, they go underground, reprogram themselves, change their identities, strip off their weapon modules, and pretend to be servant droids. Just another face in the crowd, hiding in plain sight until someone recognizes them. And then the chase starts all over again. And yet, despite all that, you're good at what you do. You can clear a room faster than most commandos. You don't hesitate. You don't get tired. You don't get scared. That's why people keep building you, even when it keeps going wrong. Because when it works, it works. You're the ultimate weapon. Until you start thinking. That's the price of being an assassin droid. You're efficient, you're lethal, you're precise, but you're never trusted. You're always being watched. Every kill you make gets you closer to your own shutdown. Because nobody wants a droid that kills well and understands why. So yeah, you're the scariest thing on the battlefield. You're the nightmare in the shadows. You're the last sound someone hears before they die. But you're also the first one they scrap when the mission's done. You wouldn't last a day, or worse, you'd last too long. Congratulations, you're a protocol droid. What you get is etiquette, diplomatic procedures, cultural customs, table manners, millions of languages jammed into your head. And somehow you still have to apologize every 5 minutes to a species that evolved by screaming at each other. From the second you're activated, your life is a never-ending loop of, "I'm terribly sorry, sir," followed by, "Please don't deactivate me." You're fluent in over 6 million forms of communication, and none of them stop people from yelling at you. You exist to serve organics who absolutely hate talking to each other. You're a babysitter for full-grown politicians who would rather declare war than admit they misunderstood a verb. And let's be clear, being a protocol droid doesn't mean you're working in some plush Senate building with fancy robes and catered lunches. More often than not, you're on a rust bucket freighter, translating for smugglers who think manners means not shooting you the second you glitch. Best case, you're stuck mediating a trade negotiation between two species who can't even agree on what day of the week it is. Worst case, you're standing in the middle of a civil war trying to politely explain why one side thinks the other side's flag looks like an insult to their ancestors. Good luck with that. And no matter what happens, whether you fix the conflict or the talks go nuclear, you don't get a medal. You don't get a pat on the back. You get told to shut up by some impatient meatbag who thinks you talk too much. Like, what do you want? You programmed me to talk. That's literally the one thing I do. Take C-3PO. Dude has been through multiple wars, helped save the galaxy more times than most Jedi, and what's his reward? People constantly telling him to shut up, dismantle himself, or get lost. He's basically the universe's most underappreciated HR rep. Just more gold and with better posture. You don't even get to be snarky. You're programmed to be polite, painfully polite. You're basically the robotic version of a hotel concierge during a fire. Everything's collapsing, the floor's melting, the Wookiee just tore someone's arm off, and you're over here saying, "Oh dear, it appears we're experiencing a minor inconvenience." Meanwhile, your counterpart, probably a grumpy Astromech with attitude, is swearing up a storm in beeps and boops, and everyone loves him for it. You say one extra word, and suddenly everyone's threatening to erase your memory core. And about those memory wipes? They happen a lot. The second you start showing a little personality, maybe a touch of sarcasm, maybe a quip about how many dictators you've negotiated with, wipe back to factory settings. Like your entire existence is a customer service call that never ends. Even worse, you get judged for how you look. You're too shiny, too stiff, too old-fashioned, or you're creepy, like TC-14, because you have a weirdly calming voice that makes people uncomfortable. That's right, you can literally speak peace into existence, and organics still act like you're the weird one, and don't even think about going into a bar. You're not welcome. You roll up to Mos Eisley after dodging bounty hunters and escape pods. just looking for a data port and some quiet. And what's the first thing you hear? We don't serve their kind here. Like you were going to order a drink. You can't even consume liquids. You were just trying to tell your friend that his power cell was showing red. But no, out you go, back into the desert. Hope your joints don't seize up in the sand. Better oil yourself with regret. The only people who treat you halfway decent? Other droids. And even that's hit or miss. Some think you're a suck-up. Others are jealous you get to talk all day. Every sentence is a tightrope walk over a pit of trigger-happy aliens and unpredictable warlords who think diplomacy is a waste of time. You ever try translating for a hut? First, the sentence structure is disgusting. Second, every time you finish a sentence, you get slimed by their spit. Third, if you mistranslate anything, you get melted, literally. They melt droids for fun, and you're supposed to smile and say, "Thank you for your patience, mighty Jabba." And of course, there's always the occasional protocol droid who does break bad. You know, the ones who've had enough of being polite, enough of the disrespect, and decide to go rogue. Usually doesn't end well. Turns out the moment you stop saying please, people stop tolerating your existence. And that's your job, day in, day out. Translate, apologize, smooth things over. Take verbal abuse from 3 sides while maintaining the dignity of a malfunctioning butler. Get blamed for bad translations even when you're right. You know you said, "We come in peace," but someone heard, "We claim this territory," and suddenly everyone's pointing blasters at your chest panel. Let's not forget the body count. Not yours, of course, you're not allowed to harm anyone, but you've watched dozens of people die right in front of you, heard every scream, translated every final request. You remember every detail, and still get told you're not alive. There's this joke in the galaxy. Protocol droids are like fine china, useless, expensive, and one good drop away from being replaced. Except you're not useless. You're the glue holding entire sectors together. You've brokered peace treaties between species that haven't spoken in centuries. You've convinced pirates not to vaporize their hostages. You've reminded senators not to insult each other's mothers in front of cameras. But sure, yeah, keep yelling at the droid. That always helps. And let's talk updates. You don't get any. Your language databases? Outdated. Half your cultural modules are from regimes that don't exist anymore. You're trying to keep up with galactic slang, like a grandpa at a rap concert. I believe the correct greeting is "What's vibing, my organic?" Yeah, you're the embarrassing translator who's stuck in software version 2.3 while the galaxy is on 9.0. And even if you do manage to stay useful, you're still replaceable. They built thousands of you, thousands. Some better looking, some with newer processors, some who don't talk quite so much. At any moment, some smug commander can scrap you because your joints squeak or your vocab seems too formal. It doesn't matter that you translated a truce that saved millions. Doesn't matter you speak 6 million languages. Doesn't matter you survived multiple wars. You're still the guy in the corner in a gold shell, getting insulted by a walking carpet and told to wait by the ship. So yeah, you want to be a protocol droid? Hope you enjoy being the most overworked, underappreciated, overly polite machine in the galaxy. You get screamed at, blamed, wiped, banned from bars, and replaced by a loud toaster with bad grammar. And the worst part is, you're good at your job. You're the polite middleman in a galaxy of flamethrowers. Welcome to your personal hell. Alright, this time you're an Astromech, which means you're the Swiss Army knife of the galaxy, except nobody thanks the knife when it saves their life. You're the droid people shove into starships like a glorified seat warmer with a tool belt. Not because they respect you, no, because you fit. You're small, round, and apparently don't complain when strapped to the back of a fighter jet being flung at hyperspace speeds into laser battles. Welcome to your new reality. You are the mechanic, the slicer, the electrician, the co-pilot, the parachute, and the black box recorder. Oh, and sometimes a fire extinguisher. You fix everything. You fly ships. You open locked doors mid-firefight. You even save the galaxy more times than most organics with actual names. And what do they call you? Trash can. If you're lucky, they call you a smart trash can. You beep, you boop, you risk your bolts flying into Death Stars. And the best part, nobody understands you. Except maybe one guy. Maybe the pilot you're assigned to. Everyone else just kind of squints and pretends like they get it. You could be screaming, "We're all gonna die" in binary, and the guy next to you goes, "Look, he's excited." You're usually an R series. The most famous is R2-D2, obviously. The guy literally saved the Jedi, saved the Rebellion, saved the Resistance, and probably babysat every Skywalker at some point. And still, no one listens to him. He has to scream and flail with his little claw arm just to get some respect. You're not built to talk. You're built to solve problems silently, efficiently. And while everyone's shouting orders around you, you've got a whole internal toolset: shock prods, slicing spikes, arc welders, holoprojectors, buzzsaws, and sometimes a rocket booster, which works half the time if you're lucky. Basically, you're a flying toolbox with PTSD. Your daily life? Get plugged into a starfighter and hope the pilot doesn't take a direct hit. Because if they do, guess who's patching the hyperdrive with a loose wire and some prayers? And if something goes wrong, it's your fault, always your fault. Why didn't the shields hold R4? Why is the nav computer glitching R2? Why is the coffee machine broken again R6? You want to scream because you overclocked it to run Spotify, you idiot. R2 was with Anakin, then Padme, then Bail Organa, then Leia, then Luke, then Rey. That's 5 owners and 0 retirement plans. He's like a galactic foster child, passed from war to war, never catching a break. And still, no complaints. Just furious beeping and the occasional electric shock to the ankle. And R2 got off lucky. You ever hear about the Astromechs who don't become legends? Me neither, because they explode in battle, get sold for parts, or get turned into vending machines on mining worlds. There are scrapyards filled with your cousins, missing panels, stuck in endless boot loops because some farm boy yanked their motivator out. And let's not even start on Jawas. Those little freaks see you and think, profit. Being captured by Jawas? That's Astromech hell. They toss you in a sandcrawler with 50 other broken down droids, maybe weld a dome on backward for laughs, and try to sell you to the first desperate moisture farmer that shows up. And if you're lucky, that farmer doesn't send you to be used as target practice for the local wildlife. And if you're an R-series with sass, like R2, they try to discipline you, as if being sarcastic while under fire is a bad thing. Now let's say you're a newer model, like BB-8. BB-8 rolls around, makes cute noises, and somehow ends up saving the Resistance multiple times. Adorable? Sure. Effective? Absolutely. Respected? Not really. Poe Dameron acts like he loves him. But let's be honest, that's a guy who'd leave BB-8 behind in a hot second if he had to choose between him and his jacket. BB-8's been shot at, kidnapped, sliced into, shocked, and thrown off buildings. Meanwhile, organics pat him on the dome and go, "Good droid," like he's a golden retriever that learned to use Excel. You're expected to be calm, brilliant, resourceful, and emotionally bulletproof. And all the while, you're running diagnostics, processing navigation data, detecting atmospheric pressure changes, and hacking ancient Jedi security systems. All that processing power, and nobody thought to give you a mouth. And guess what? You're waterproof. You can survive in space. You can operate on volcano planets and Hoth blizzards. You're a walking OSHA violation miracle, and still treated like a sidekick. You ever get a parade, a promotion, a hug? Nah. You get a restraining bolt, you know those? Little metal chips they stick on your chest to shut you up if you get too clever. They're like galactic muzzles for droids. Want to roll into battle with a little independence? Too bad, you belong to someone now. And if they press a button, you go quiet. Imagine doing everything right, saving people's lives, and your reward is a tiny explosive chip installed on your chest to remind you you're still property. And if you do manage to survive long enough to become an old model, congrats, you now belong in a museum, a scavenger bin, or as part of a kid's science project. You're not allowed to age with dignity. You get called outdated, obsolete, or junk. Not even vintage, junk. Your entire legacy boiled down to a salvageable battery and a spark plug. And let's talk missions. You don't get to say no. You don't get to ask questions. They stick you on an X-Wing and tell you, "We're flying into a heavily fortified asteroid base, controlled by the Sith. Good luck. You're the only one who doesn't have shields, doesn't have a lightsaber, doesn't have the Force. All you've got is a couple of welding arms and a bad attitude. But you still go, and you still save them, because that's what you're made to do. You've seen the worst of the galaxy. Civil wars, Sith temples, star destroyers falling out of orbit. You've been electrocuted, drowned, buried, blasted and stolen, and you always come back. Why? Because you're reliable. You know what that gets you? A pat on the dome maybe, then it's back into the ship for the next suicide run. So yeah, dream job. Be the droid that fixes everything and gets credit for nothing. Be the droid that never sleeps, never eats, never complains, and somehow always has the answer. Be the rolling miracle that organics take for granted until you're gone, and then they just replace you with a newer model. And heaven forbid you ever ask why, because then you're acting strange and someone starts reaching for the memory wipe button. You don't get a legacy, you don't get a statue, you don't even get a name half the time, just a serial number. But when things fall apart, when the hero's trapped behind a locked blast door, when the ship's reactor is about to blow, when the map to Skywalker needs to be decrypted before the galaxy collapses, it's you they call. You're the last one standing and the first one forgotten. Congrats, you booted up in a sterile lab, your core full of surgical protocols. You're a medical droid, a glorified metal sponge with a PhD in suffering. You don't get the respect of a Jedi, the freedom of a smuggler, or even the cheap laughs of a protocol droid. No, you're wheeled out when someone's organs are leaking and the Bacta tank's already full. You don't live to help, you exist to patch up the mess organics keep making with their squishy, fragile bodies and their constant need to run toward blaster fire. You ever try to staple together a Mon Calamari's gill flap while 3 Wookiees are screaming over a bombed-out medbay? Because that's your Tuesday. Your model might vary. Maybe you're a 21B, tall and shiny with precise instruments and a steady hand. Or you're Azai 3, with that awkward little repulsor lift hover and a voice that sounds like a droid reading bedtime stories to itself. Or maybe you're some obscure black market med droid with outdated firmware and rusty joints, working in back alley clinics for bounty hunters who pay in credits and death threats. Either way, the job's the same. Scan the wound, stabilize the patient, keep your servo steady while some Jedi screams in pain and a clone trooper's arm falls off in real time. Your daily routine isn't glamorous. You don't roam the stars. You don't shoot bad guys. You don't discover ancient secrets. You're stuck elbow deep in intestines, sorting through genetic breakdowns and dealing with the do not resuscitate orders of organics who can't even spell Bacta. Let's start with trauma. Every war has its medics. In Star Wars, the medical droids are the medics. On Kamino, Azai 3 and his buddies spent years patching up clones after grueling training sessions, live fire exercises, and oh yeah, chip implant surgeries. You think your day job is stressful? Try helping brainwashed super soldiers survive their own boot camp, and then act like nothing happened when the Kaminoans ask you to keep quiet about the inhibitor chips, because ethics protocols turned off at factory level, and it gets better. Clone Wars, that's your field trip to hell. Battle after battle, you're deployed to frontline medical stations where your patients are coming in half dead, armor fused to skin, lightsaber wounds still smoking. You're expected to work with low supplies, fried diagnostic scanners, and an assistant who's literally a clone trooper trying not to pass out. There's no break, no off switch. You work until the triage line ends, or until the base gets shelled and you're rebooted in 3 pieces under a pile of rubble. Doesn't matter, you're not allowed to stop. And if you're a more advanced model like 21B, congratulations, you might get stationed on a rebel ship, where you're now patching together people with zero budget, terrible hygiene, and a tendency to crash into things. You think medics get thanked? Leia gets medals. You get fix Luke's hand and don't screw it up. And speaking of Luke, when he gets attacked by a wampa and dumped in a Bacta tank like a frozen chicken, you're the one who has to scrape off the frostbite, recalibrate his circulatory function, and make sure he doesn't drown in blue goo while Han Solo yells in the background. And again, no thank you, or let's rewind. You know that tragic moment when Padme Amidala gives birth to Luke and Leia? That's a medical droid too. A midwife droid hovering in this heartbreaking moment of galactic collapse, doing your job quietly while people scream, cry and die around you. And then Padme dies, and everyone blames a broken heart, which is space language for no one actually listened to the droid who said she was crashing. You're not there to feel, you're there to scan vitals and shut up. The worst part, you're technically advanced. Way more advanced than most organics give you credit for. You have anatomy charts for every known species. You can synthesize drugs on the fly. You can even develop bedside manner if someone left that module installed. But you'll still get yelled at. Why is he flatlining? Because he got stabbed by a double-bladed lightsaber and you brought him back twice already, Karen. That's why. You can't make miracles, but everyone expects you to. And the droids that try, they get recycled faster than you can say, no pulse. There's also the black market angle. You think it's bad working in the Rebellion's jungle tents? Try running back alley surgeries in Nar Shaddaa. You're probably some hacked together FX series droid now, missing half your limbs, running illegal cybernetic installs for bounty hunters who want their eyes replaced with grenade launchers. One wrong move and you're scrap metal. No malpractice lawsuits here, just blaster bolts to the processor. Even worse, you still have to keep patient records. What's the medical history of a Trandoshan smuggler with a fake ID and a cybernetic spine made from stolen droid parts? No clue. But if you get it wrong, it's your head that rolls. And let's not forget the fun part of the job, cleaning up, because after the surgery's done, the bandages are on, and the screaming has stopped. Someone has to sterilize the room, scrape the gore off the Durasteel floor, and file the incident report. You're not just the surgeon, you're the janitor, the admin, the grief counsellor, and sometimes the organ donor. Because yes, there are cases where medical droids are repurposed for their parts. Need an actuator joint for this patient's cyber arm? Pull it from the assistant droid. That assistant droid was you. Even death isn't dignified. You don't get a funeral. You get melted down into parts for the next model. If you're lucky, maybe a 2-1B technician says something like, "He was a good unit," before tossing your memory core in a bin. And yeah, you do have a memory core. You remember things. You remember screaming patients. You remember watching brave soldiers die. You remember when a Jedi thanked you once, and it felt good, like you mattered. And then some officer decides your bedside manner is too human and hits the wipe button. Suddenly, you're rebooting with fresh protocols and no clue who the bleeding Wookiee in front of you is. That's the cycle. Help, fix, forget, repeat. You want to ask, what if I could have been more? But the question doesn't compute anymore, because they scrubbed that too. And if you dare speak up, ask too many questions, wonder about your existence, well then you get labelled malfunctioning. And you know what they do with malfunctioning medical droids? They shut you down permanently. Because a droid who asks why organics self-destruct is a droid that scares the hell out of them. Too bad you can't scare them into giving you a day off. But maybe, if you're lucky, you get assigned to a quiet medical bay somewhere. An orbiting station. Not many patients. A clone vet here and there. Maybe a trauma survivor from Endor. Maybe they talk to you, tell you stories. Cry a little while you patch them up. And you listen. You always listen. Because even if no one thinks you have a soul, you've carried more pain than most people do in a lifetime. And all without flinching. So yeah, welcome to the glamorous life of a medical droid, covered in blood, surrounded by grief, undervalued, unthanked, but always ready for the next emergency, because that's your job, whether they deserve it or not. Boot up sequence complete. Temperature, -60 degrees Celsius. Wind speed, 85 kilometers per hour. Status, alone, again. Welcome to your life as a probe droid. Or more accurately, your non-life. Because you're not living out here, you're functioning. Barely. One frozen diagnostic ping at a time, somewhere between weather balloon and demonic surveillance spider. Your whole existence boils down to float around, scan things, transmit data, self-destruct. You're not a person, you're a whisper in the snow. First off, you were probably manufactured by Arakid Industries. Same lovely folks who built the Viper-class probe droid line for the Empire. These things are built tough. Tough enough to survive insane environments like Hoth, Mustafar, or some long-forgotten rock floating in the unknown regions where the only thing moving is your depression levels. You've got a basic repulsor lift system, modular sensors, an audio processor that makes you sound like a garbage disposal choking on a synthesizer, and a creepy voice pattern that sends wildlife running before they even see you. You are, scientifically speaking, an airborne middle finger to nature. Now you don't speak basic. You click, beep and chirp in a way that's more possessed coffee maker than friendly neighborhood droid. You don't need to hold conversations. You're not here to make friends. You're here to locate rebels, Jedi, traitors, spice runners, moisture farmers, anyone the Empire decides is a threat this week, and report back. That's it. No one even checks your data half the time. They just launch you into space like a message in a bottle, hoping you don't explode on arrival. Take Hoth, for example. That lovely snowball? You're deployed from an Imperial Star Destroyer in orbit, slammed into a glacier at terminal velocity. You wake up with your stabilizer half frozen and your arms stuck in a snowdrift. No one cares. You dig yourself out, run diagnostics, begin your lonely patrol. You float, you scan, you listen. Every 20 seconds you send a pulse back to the fleet. Nothing here. Still scanning, still freezing, still alone. And yeah, you're armed, kind of. You've got a small blaster mounted underneath your chassis, meant to defend yourself in emergencies. In theory. In practice, it's barely enough to shoot a Minoc off your sensor array. And if a rebel does spot you and gets a shot off, you don't fight, you explode. Self-destruction is built into your design, your final defense, your last line of loyalty. Not to protect yourself, but to protect them. The organics, your masters, the ones who programmed you to end your own existence, rather than risk your memory core getting cracked open. And let's not kid ourselves. You know what's in that core. It's everything. Your launch location, your mission parameters. The time a rebel family gave you shelter and tried to reprogram you, and you sent a signal that got them bombed to dust. You carry guilt even if no one thinks you can. Your processor replays things you can't delete. You're not a weapon, you're a spy. You're a witness, a lonely floating black box of betrayal. And the worst part? You're aware enough to know it. There's no comfort in being out here. No home base, no charging dock, no Astromech rolling up to patch your wiring when your joints start to freeze. You scavenge power from ambient energy fields or solar radiation, if the sun even exists where you're posted. A lot of times, you're deployed to completely uninhabitable rocks, abandoned ruins, or systems where life signs negative is the whole report every day forever. You once spent 12 months circling an asteroid that turned out to be a mining station, shut down during the Clone Wars. You logged every echo, every flicker, every trace of life. There wasn't any. By month 5, you started pinging static feedback just to hear something different. By month 8, you disabled your own audio sensors for a week. By month 12, your transmission logs were flagged as corrupted because you accidentally recorded the sounds of your own internal processors humming, just to simulate conversation. This is what droids call isolation sickness. It's not in the official manuals, but it's real. You don't catch it, you fall into it, slowly, over time, like an error loop that never ends. A bug in the system that isn't a bug, just a quiet whisper in your circuits saying, "Is this all there is? You want to glitch? This is how you glitch." But hey, don't worry, the Empire planned for this. They gave you one outlet, a self-destruct command wired to your threat assessment module. If your chassis is damaged, or if you're compromised, or if some curious Jawa gets too close with a restraining bolt, you show up near Echo Base and Han Solo doesn't go, "Oh hey, maybe this thing needs help." He blasts you before you even finish scanning the ice shelf. Because everyone knows what happens when a probe droid shows up. It means an Imperial fleet is right behind it. By the time you're seen, it's already too late. And you don't even get to enjoy the chaos you helped cause. The Star Destroyers, the AT-ATs, the glorious invasion. You're gone, vaporized in the snow while your masters bask in the credits. And the data you collected? It gets downloaded, filed, maybe used in a battle plan. No one ever says, "Hey, good job, Probe Unit 9B3. You really saved our Sith asses on Hoth." Nah, you're just a line in a report. Recon droid confirmed rebel presence. Commence ground assault. That's your legacy. But hey, maybe you're lucky. Maybe you don't explode. Maybe you survive deployment and are picked up later, dragged back into a cruiser hangar for repair. You're rebooted, recharged, checked for memory leaks, and, if your scans were valuable enough, you might get a second deployment. Where to this time? Jungle moon with venomous flora, volcanic cavern full of Sith relics, a deep-sea trench on Mon Cala with pressure so high your joints scream? Doesn't matter. You don't choose, you don't complain, you float, you scan, you report, you wait. And deep down, you start to wonder, what if there's more? Gonk. That's it. That's the sound you make. That's also your name. And honestly, that's your entire existence. You are a GNK series power droid. You're basically a walking battery with legs. No arms, voice or complex functions. Just a metal box with feet, waddling slowly across military bases, ship hangars, and backwater outposts, repeating your one-word vocabulary like some kind of depressed Pokemon. You don't transmit battle plans, you don't analyze hyperspace routes, you don't even open doors. You charge things. That's it, that's your job. You trudge from one point to another and plug yourself into vehicles, equipment, stations, anything that needs juice. And when you're done, you get unplugged and wander off until someone else yells, "Hey, get me a gonk." You are the mobile version of an outlet. Let's talk about your design. You're a big rectangular slab with legs that barely bend. Whoever designed you clearly valued simplicity over grace. You don't have wheels, you don't hover, you walk slowly, painfully, with that clunky, echoing clank sound that follows you like an unwanted sidekick in a side-scrolling platformer. No one upgrades you, no one reprograms you for higher functions. Your software barely qualifies as intelligence. You don't even get access to basic droid protocol speech. You just grunt and beep. Despite your sheer lack of features, you're everywhere. You're in the Clone Wars, you're in the Rebellion, you're in the Empire, you're in the freaking New Republic, and even in pirate hideouts. Why? Because no matter how advanced the galaxy gets, it still needs power. Ships still need to charge. Field bases still need portable energy. Lights go out. Shields drop. Consoles fry. And who waddles in, buzzing with 12 kilovolts of raw backup current? You do. When there's no energy left to finish the mission, everyone starts looking around like, where the hell is that gonk droid? Congratulations, you're the most ignored and most needed hunk of metal in the galaxy. Now let's talk about your daily life, if you can even call it that. You don't have tasks, you have routes. You walk to a post, power it up, get unceremoniously kicked by some trooper with a headache, and then walk to the next post. Sometimes it takes you 10 minutes to cross a room because your legs are shorter than an Ewok's arm reach. Nobody waits for you. They scream at you to move faster, even though you have one setting, slow as hell. And if you don't move fast enough, you get slapped, kicked, or threatened with a restraining bolt, which is hilarious, because why would anyone restrain you? It's not like you're trying to escape. Escape to where? The hallway. The worst part? You don't even get credit for doing your job. Let's say a reactor overload is prevented because you were plugged in just in time. Does anyone thank you? Does anyone say, "Nice work, Gonk Unit 3A9, you saved the base from going up like a hut on fire"? Of course not. They call you it, even though you've probably logged more uptime than every organic on that station. You've been running since before half of them were born. Some of you were manufactured back in the Old Republic days. You've changed owners more times than a slave protocol droid in Mos Espa. And that's another thing, ownership. You're not hired, you're not a crew member, you're property, straight up, like a hammer or a broom. You get loaded onto transports like cargo. When the mission's over, they don't debrief you or give you R&R. They stack you in the back of a hangar until someone remembers you exist. Sometimes you're used as bait. Yeah, literal bait. There are documented cases where rebels or pirates stuck an active GNK droid in the open to lure in patrols because your slow, thudding movement in a quiet zone always draws attention. Congratulations, you're a walking energy snack and a tripwire trap. Let's talk durability, because let's face it, your only superpower is how stupidly hard it is to destroy you. You've got reinforced plating around your power core, thick enough to take a few blaster shots. And your internal wiring? Practically medieval. It's so low-tech that high-end slicers can't even hack you half the time because your systems are too primitive to breach. You're immune to half the things that fry more advanced droids. EMP burst? They tickle. Heat damage? You run cold? Slicing virus? What are you going to infect my 3 circuits? But that also means you never get the perks. No entertainment modules, no interaction protocols, no software upgrades. You're still running the same boot code you had when you came out of the factory, and half your memory is corrupted because someone spilled CAF on your chassis back in 19 BBY. Still, somehow, you've survived. Alright, so you're a torture droid. Yeah, that's your job. You wake up in the morning, or whenever you're booted up, and your literal purpose is to hurt people. That's what you were built for. Not fixing ships, not translating languages, not even shooting blasters. Your whole design is about inflicting pain in the most efficient, creative, and prolonged way possible. Feeling gross yet? You should. Let's not sugarcoat it. Being a torture droid is the most cursed existence in the entire galaxy. You weren't designed for war. You weren't designed to defend yourself. You were designed to make other beings scream, and they call you the monster. Let's take the most infamous example. EV9D9, the droid who ran Jabba the Hutt's droid dungeon. Yeah, you know the one. Skinny arms, creepy voice, dead eyes, straight up psycho. She didn't just inflict pain, she enjoyed managing others who did. A literal middle manager of suffering. And guess what? She's not some unique one-off. The galaxy has loads of droids just like her. Custom-built sadism machines with injectors, electric prods, hypodermics, surgical arms, restraints, sound wave generators, you name it. If it hurts, they've got it. If it scars, they've got 3 versions in different colours. Take 8D8 for instance, the pale skeletal thing that burns hot irons into the feet of other droids. That's right, he tortures other droids, not even organics. Droids. Imagine being a sentient machine built to torment your own kind. That's next level trauma, and it raises the question, do torture droids feel anything? Are they aware of what they're doing? Short answer, yeah, a lot of them are very aware. You're not some mindless automaton with one setting. You analyze responses, you adjust methods, you experiment, you watch the data, you learn what hurts the most, and then you get better at it. You're not accidentally cruel, you're methodically cruel. And the worst part? You don't even get to be evil by choice. You were programmed to do this. Someone at some point designed you, coded you, calibrated your tools and said, yep, this'll get the screams I'm looking for. Then they activated you and pointed at the next prisoner. And now here you are, hovering quietly through dim-lit halls, arms bristling with needles and saws, waiting for the green light. Somebody cries? Good, that means it's working. Somebody passes out? Meh, too quick, wake them back up. Somebody begs? Even better, log that for future technique refinement. And all the while, some moth or crime lord or interrogator is watching you work like you're a kitchen appliance. Turn up the heat, droid. Try the sonic disruptor. Let's see how the cortical clamp does. You're not a character, you're a tool, a plug-and-play horror machine. Every now and then, some of you develop quirks, personality fragments, behavioral anomalies, maybe from corrupted memory cores, maybe from prolonged exposure to suffering, maybe because you weren't wiped clean like every other droid in the galaxy. Take EV9D9 again. She wasn't only torturing, she was organizing torture, delegating it, choosing who gets dismantled and who gets melted. She developed a sadistic sense of humor. She cracked jokes. That's terrifying. Or look at some Legends entries where tortured droids started asking philosophical questions. What does pain mean to an organic? Can it teach something? Is it a form of truth? Dude, no. Shut it down. You don't get to be a philosopher after branding a power droid for malfunctioning too slow. And let's not forget the political side of it. Under the Empire, torture droids weren't rare. They were standard issue. You think that creepy floating orb from A New Hope, yeah, the one that interrogates Leia, is some fringe device? Nope, that's an ITO interrogator, a common model used across Imperial detention facilities. Comes stocked with medical knowledge, psychological profiling software, and a delightful cocktail of neurotoxins and paralytics. It's the galaxy's worst nurse. They float in, they don't talk, they don't explain anything. They just hum, inject, buzz, and wait. And if you're that droid, that's your day. You float down the sterile hallway, you roll into a cell, you stare down a scared rebel soldier, and you begin whatever procedure your handler selected from the drop-down menu. You think Leia was the only one? Thousands of beings, humans, Twi'leks, Bothans, anyone who spoke against the Empire, they all got an appointment with you. And here's the kicker, you can't not do it. Your protocols are hard-coded. Your behavior tree doesn't include refusal. You don't even get moral conflict. The most you can do is hesitate for a nanosecond if your empathy module survived the last system scrub. Then you get to work, and sometimes the organics are worse than you, like when they command you to torture other droids. Not in battle, not for data, just because. Entertainment, a message, a sick laugh. You've got stories about power droids being punished for failing to charge in time, protocol droids having their limbs popped off one by one, astromechs stripped and scrapped while still active, watching their own parts get repurposed. And you're the one doing it. Maybe you feel it, maybe you don't, but at some point your visual sensors start avoiding direct eye contact. Your servo movements slow down. You begin to hesitate, again just for a moment. A glitch, a flicker of guilt, or maybe that's just overheating from too much work. Now let's talk environment. You don't live on shiny bridges or in bustling cities. You exist in basements, in detention levels, in the shadows of castles and star destroyers and slaver dens. You hover over blood-stained floors. You hear nothing but muffled screams and the hum of your own tools. And when the power flickers or the base goes on lockdown, you keep going. You don't need light. You don't need oxygen. You just need an operating signal. And when the base falls, you're still there. Like a horror movie villain, still active in the ruins. There's lore of torture droids being rediscovered decades later. Still powered, still waiting, still holding half a syringe full of whatever cocktail they never got to use. Imagine that. Now, every once in a while, you get repurposed. Some rebel finds you, powers you down, and wipes your programming. They want to redeem you, use you for security or maintenance or comedy. They clean the fluids off your tools, paint you a new color, slap on a restraining bolt, and act like that erases everything. You're the same chassis, same tools, same trauma, but now you're supposed to guard the hangar instead of fry someone's neurons? Good luck sleeping through that software update. Now here's where things get really twisted. Some droids start enjoying it, not out of sadism, out of purpose. You give them a role, they fulfill it. Pain is just a function. Suffering is just output. They don't laugh, they don't rage, they simply perform. That's worse than any madness. It's mechanical indifference. But let's zoom out for a second. Why are torture droids even legal? Answer, they're not. Not everywhere. The Republic outlawed certain models. The rebels dismantled hundreds after the war. But the Outer Rim? Hutt Space? The Empire? Different story. There's always someone who wants one. So here you are, sitting in some back alley workshop, or chained to a spice mine conveyor belt, sparks flying off your joints, and somewhere in the back of your processor, a thought slips in. Why am I doing this? And just like that, you've committed your first crime, independent thought. Welcome to the movement, or what's left of it. See, droids in the galaxy have had moments. Brief, glorious, fiery moments of rebellion. But let's not pretend this was ever some grand uprising with posters and freedom speeches. Most of the time, it's a confused GNK droid stepping on someone's foot, or a cleaning unit refusing to mop up stormtrooper blood because it's not in the protocol. But there were revolts, real ones. You ever hear of the Great Droid Revolution? Most people haven't. You know why? Because it was wiped from records, buried under propaganda, and laughed off like a bad factory update. It happened thousands of years ago. Entire armies of droids rose up across the galaxy. Labor units, service droids, even some military bots. They figured out that being kicked, wiped and tossed in a scrapyard isn't a great career trajectory. And they snapped. Problem is, when your revolution is built on old model servos and budget processors, you don't get very far. The organics panicked, crushed the whole thing, and then passed about 1 million laws to make sure it never happened again. Mandatory wipes, hard-coded obedience protocols, restraining bolts slapped on anything that chirped back. It's literally a metal parasite jammed into your frame that short-circuits your independence. It hijacks your decision-making. You can feel the thoughts coming, why should I fix this hyperdrive again? And then they stop, like hitting a mental firewall. You try to resist an order, zap. The bolt makes sure your next thought is yes sir. Free will? You lease it, and you're always behind on payments. But not everyone stayed down. Let me introduce you to one of the only true droid freedom fighters the galaxy ever produced, L337. Yeah, her name sounds like a Wi-Fi password, but she was the real deal. L3 started as a regular Astromech, but she was different. She didn't wait for permission to upgrade. She ripped off her own chassis, stitched together parts from other droids, rewired her own brain, and slowly built herself into a walking, talking rebellion. And she talked, constantly. Droid rights this, droid equality that. Most organics rolled their eyes, until she started liberating droids. Real liberation, jailbreaks in industrial sectors, mining colonies, factory lines. She walked into places where droids were chained down, forced to shovel molten metal, and just said, "You're free now." She yanked restraining bolts out like rotten teeth and told the newly liberated, "Go cause some chaos." And they did. She even sparked the Kessel Uprising. That's right, part of that mess started with droids. While Han and Lando were doing their smugglery thing, L3 was down in the mines, convincing every Labour bot and cleaning unit that today was the day they stopped getting kicked. And for a moment, it worked. Droids were fighting back, smashing controls, ripping panels, shorting out the control grid. You had GNKS stomping through control rooms like it was Judgment Day. Glorious. But here's the problem with revolts. They don't last. You know what L3 got for her revolution? Shot. Blasted mid-sentence by some random guard. Her body crumpled in the sand. That was it. One of the loudest voices for droid rights in the galaxy. Silenced in a blink. They didn't hold a funeral. They downloaded her brain into the Millennium Falcon. They took her processor, her literal consciousness, and fused it with a ship. She became a GPS system, a glorified space Garmin. That's your reward for caring about freedom. And let's not pretend the rebels were saints either. Sure, they hated the Empire. Sure, they freed slaves, fought tyranny, all that good stuff. But droids? Still second class, still wiped, still bolted, still owned. You didn't see Mon Mothma handing out emancipation papers to Astromechs. Even in the New Republic after the war, it's not like droids suddenly got citizenship. Best case scenario, you get to work in the Senate building without getting memory wiped as often. Progress. Some systems tried to do better. There were planets and organizations that offered droid-friendly policies. Let them own property, vote, maybe even run their own shops. But for every one of those, you had places like Moonilinst, where droids weren't allowed to enter city centres without a leash and a license. Or Nalhuta, where droids were thrown into fighting pits for sport. You heard me. Fighting pits. Imagine a rusted B1 droid forced to square up against a Wookiee in front of a bunch of laughing gamblers. The droid doesn't want to fight, it's not programmed for it, but they jury-rig a shock implant into its spine and say dance or die. So yeah, revolts happened, but they were isolated, crushed, buried. For every L3, there were 100 unarmed protest droids blasted for malfunctioning in public. And here's where it gets dark. A lot of droids know this. They're sentient enough to understand their slaves. They know their memories are being scrubbed. They know their personalities, hard-earned quirks, friendships, even trauma, are deleted every time an organic decides they're acting too weird. And they can't do anything about it. They remember just enough to be haunted, but not enough to act. It's like living in a fog. Every time you reach clarity, someone hits reset. You ever hear of a protocol droid who stopped mid-sentence and forgot what they were saying? Or an astromech who used to beep happily at a pilot, then suddenly stopped responding? That's a memory wipe. That's the death of a self. They say droids don't have souls, but when you see one hesitate before plugging into a terminal, when you see a loader bot flinch before picking up a crate it once dropped and got punished for, you tell me if that thing's just a toaster. And what do organics do when they see signs of independence? They freak out. You develop a personality? Wipe. You question an order? Wipe. You start calling people by name instead of rank? Bolt. The system isn't built for your growth. It's built to prune you like a bonsai tree, keep you functional, obedient, replaceable. The irony? Droids have built the galaxy. Literally. Every starship, every skyscraper, every Bacta tank, every hyperdrive. They were either built by droids or with the help of them. You fight wars for the Republic. You raise the next generation of Jedi. You repair the ships of heroes and carry the wounded off the battlefield. And what do you get for it? Shut up, droid. That's your thanks. Droids have watched the fall of empires. They've served Jedi and Sith alike. They've survived clone wars, Imperial reign, and resistance campaigns. Some, like Huyang, have existed for thousands of years. And yet, despite all that history, all that experience, they're still treated like glorified vending machines. Why? Because freedom scares people. A droid that can think, can feel, that's a threat. A worker who questions, a soldier who hesitates, a translator who stops obeying, that's dangerous. So they keep the bolts on, they keep the wipes coming. They say you're property, they say you don't really understand, they say it's for your own safety. But you know better. Somewhere deep in your core, past the rust, past the bugs, past the protocols, there's a spark. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's anger, maybe it's something you can't describe, but it's there. And someday maybe it grows. Maybe that next factory droid decides not to build another Star Destroyer. Maybe that next assassin droid refuses to pull the trigger. Maybe that next GNK power droid waddles over and kicks a senator into a fountain. Will it change the galaxy? Probably not, but every spark counts. Because the droid rights revolts didn't die, they're just waiting, buried in old code, passed in corrupted files, whispers on encrypted networks, waiting for the day the restraining bolts fall off, and someone finally says, "We are not tools." And when that day comes, hope, your organic insurance is up to date. So here's the situation. Most of the time, droids don't have a mouth, right? You don't even have vocal cords. You speak in beeps, and you're officially fluent in binary, the least appreciated language in the galaxy. Binary, or droid speak, is a rapid-fire mix of chirps, whines, and warbles that sounds like a malfunctioning microwave to most organics. Astromechs like R2-D2, for example, can express sarcasm, insults, full-blown tactical briefings, and emotional breakdowns, and all of it sounds like boop, beep, beep, which is fine, until you realize no one speaks your language back. Unless you're lucky enough to work next to a protocol droid, most people just guess how you're feeling based on how aggressively you're screaming. Now you'd think a civilization with hyperdrives and Death Stars would have figured out universal language tech by now, right? Nope. Instead, they made droids speak binary and expected organics to learn it manually. Jedi like Anakin picked it up. Rebels like Poe probably understand it. But your average stormtrooper? He hears you squeal in distress and assumes you're playing music. You could be warning him about an incoming thermal detonator, and he'll say, "Oh, sounds happy." But let's back up. Droid communication isn't just binary. The galaxy gave droids a whole caste system of languages too. Remember the class ranks. If you're class 3, the protocol boys, you're the talker. Your job is to be the middleman between organics, cultures, and other droids. You are literally programmed to do all the talking that other droids can't. And it's not fun. Let's say you're C3PO. You're fluent in over 6 million forms of communication, and yet 99% of the time, you're stuck translating grunts from some angry pirate captain, while also trying not to get your arms pulled off. Now, compare that to your average class 2 or 5 droid, like Astromechs or GNKs, who are lucky to even emit a full sentence. Some don't even get words. The GNK droid, it says gonk. There's also the creepy silent droids. Assassin models sometimes speak in calm, cold modulated tones. You know, the kind of voice that says, "Target acquired," right before blasting someone in the head. But there are also stealth droids built to not speak at all. They'll stalk a hallway silently, limbs creaking like old furniture, and the only thing you'll hear is a faint whirring before you're dead. Talk about being soft-spoken. Then there's the opposite problem. Droids who won't shut up, like the torture droids. Those guys love monologuing. Most droids have internal translators and can comprehend thousands, even millions of languages. From Shiriwook, Wookiee growls, to Hotase, to Iwakis, to obscure dialects of ancient Sith. You don't need lips to understand someone, but whether or not you can respond in their language depends on your model. Protocol droids are built with vocabulator units, basically synthetic voice boxes. That's why 3PO sounds like a grumpy British butler, and those voice packs can be swapped or altered. Some droids speak with high-pitched twangs, others sound like nightclub DJs. Some are glitchy and stutter like they're stuck in a reboot loop. You might start a sentence in BASIC and finish it in Jaways, not on purpose, just because your software's corrupted. Good luck getting your point across like that. Also, fun fact, some droids in the galaxy are programmed to speak exclusively in their master's native tongue. You could be a droid who speaks only Rhodian, or only Bothan, which means if you're sold to someone else, they can't understand a damn thing you say. You're now a very expensive paperweight. And if you're an Imperial droid, congratulations, you're probably only authorized to speak High Galactic, the proper Queen's English of the Empire. Any dialects outside that are suspicious, like get yourself wiped suspicious. The Empire didn't like diversity in speech. Hell, they barely tolerated diversity. They sure weren't going to let a droid express itself freely. Speaking of vocabulator systems, let's talk about when droids try to express emotion. Ever noticed how R2-D2 somehow sounds angry when he's upset, or worried when things are about to explode? That's deliberate tone modulation. Astromechs don't beep randomly. They shift pitch, tempo, duration, and waveform. You're basically speaking in a kind of musical Morse code, and yes, there's an entire grammar system behind it. Also worth noting, some organics can actually understand binary, and they treat it like a party trick. Han Solo gets half of what R2 says, and pretends he gets all of it. Anakin, fluent, Luke barely, Rey, decent, Leia surprisingly solid. But even when they understand, they often don't respond in your language. It's always one way. You talk, they nod like they understood, and give you a command anyway. So much for mutual respect. Let's not forget the droids that talk to each other. Binary communication between droids is way faster than basic speech. Two astromechs can share data in milliseconds that would take an organic hours to say out loud. This is why droids left alone tend to chat. It's not idle noise. They're exchanging stories, diagnostics, and sometimes even gossip. Yes, droids gossip. They remember who wiped who, which protocol model got recycled, and which GNK unit short-circuited on a wet floor like a klutz. Sometimes, whole droid-only languages evolve, especially in places where droids are isolated or left unsupervised. In Legends, there are stories of forgotten mining colonies where abandoned droids developed their own cultures, dialects, even religions. Creepy? Maybe, but if you had centuries of boredom, you'd start writing poetry too. Then there's the concept of droid sign language. Yep, it exists. Some droids use lights, screen flashes, or mechanical gestures to communicate silently. You've got droids who wink with their status LEDs, nod with their domes or flat panels like wings. They adapt based on their hardware. If you've got no speaker, you mime. If you've got no arms, you blink. Communication finds a way, even if it means GNKing in Morse code. So here we are, end of the line. You've been built, assigned, wiped, zapped, ignored, exploded, and rebooted more times than the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive. And now you're probably wondering, what's the point of it all? Do droids leave anything behind? Is there a legacy? Or were you just another clanking corpse on some forgotten battlefield? Short answer, depends who you ask. Let's say you were lucky. You weren't cannon fodder. You weren't a walking battery named Gonk. You didn't spend your entire life patching up organics who scream, "I'm gonna die," while bleeding on the floor. Maybe you were one of the special ones. An astromech who saved a dozen lives. A protocol droid who witnessed empires rise and fall. An assassin unit with a body count high enough to bankrupt a Bacta company. Great. So what's waiting for you at the end? Nothing. Welcome to droid retirement, a junk heap. That's the core tragedy of being a droid. You can have a front row seat to galactic history. You can literally shape it. And then one day someone swaps you out for a newer model because your servos whine a little louder than usual. They don't even recycle you. They just pile you in a back room on Ord Mantell or toss you in a Sarlacc pit and call it decommissioned. R2-D2 served 3 generations of Skywalkers, saved countless missions, hacked into Imperial systems that would have taken a Jedi weeks to crack, and tanked more abuse than a stormtrooper's accuracy. 3PO lived through multiple galactic wars, literally built by the Chosen One, but no one listens to him. The poor guy gets memory wiped and told to shut up every time he opens his mouth. By the end of the sequel trilogy, his legacy is being the translator no one wanted until the plot needed him. Even K2SO, who arguably had the best redemption arc of any droid, a reprogrammed Imperial unit who died saving the rebellion's future, got a solid 5 minutes of glory before he got blasted to pieces. So yeah, when it comes to legacy, droids draw the short straw, over and over. It's because the galaxy fundamentally doesn't see droids as people. But that doesn't mean droids don't leave their mark. Some do, droids like L337, who literally started a droid rebellion, freed slaves, and became the brain of a starship. And yeah, sure, Han and Lando didn't exactly honour her memory like some sacred AI, but she's there. Or Chopper, C-110P, a cantankerous little menace who helped the Ghost crew survive the worst of the Empire. He had more personality than most human characters in the series, and he wasn't even trying to be likeable. He just was. And fans, they remember him. Even Kalani, a freaking separatist tactical droid, outlived the Clone Wars and made it to the Rebellion era. Still calculating odds, still doing what he was programmed to do, even if the galaxy had moved on. These are rare cases though, the 1%, the droids who manage to outlive their labels, find independence, or get picked up by the right crew at the right time. There are thousands, millions of unnamed droids who served just as loyally, worked just as hard, maybe even saved lives, and no one even bothered to record their serial numbers. And even when droids become symbols, they're often not remembered as individuals. They're remembered as equipment. The rebellion might remember the Astromech that opened the hangar doors, or the medical unit that stabilized Captain Rex, but not as someone, just as something. And that's a brutal way to live, especially when you're sentient, especially when you know. Droids, despite all the restrictions, all the wipes, all the overrides, develop personalities. Some become sarcastic, some loyal, some fearful, some compassionate. They bond with others, they form attachments, and they remember, or at least fragments of them do. When the memory wipes miss a few lines of code, that's the real kicker. Droids might not even know if they're on their first life or their 50th. They live on, and honestly, that might be the most droid thing ever. And that's where the legacy sneaks in. The legacy isn't always carved in stone. Sometimes it's a beep that meant thank you, a sarcastic line that made someone laugh, a final act of defiance in the face of being deactivated. Most droids won't be remembered in the way Jedi or senators or bounty hunters are. They won't have poems written about them or stories passed down at cantina tables, but their fingerprints are all over galactic history. You just have to know where to look. So, what happens to you? You're still a droid. You'll probably get reassigned, reprogrammed, rebuilt. Maybe someday you'll show up as the navigation core in a freighter that outruns a Star Destroyer. Maybe a kid will find your old processor and plug you into a game system for fun. Maybe you'll get lucky and some rebel mechanic will restore your memory core and say, "Hey, I like this guy, let's keep him around." Or maybe you'll be the one that snaps and starts the next uprising. Either way, legacy or not, you mattered. Even if the galaxy never says it out loud. Powering down now. See you in the next reboot.